there's no such thing as, one Islam. Okay, there's a textual tradition from medieval times, and that IS is drawing on. So medieval texts, also statements of the Prophet, verses of the Quran. Now, IS has its own interpretation of the tradition, which is extremely literal and very serious in its approach to medieval texts. So, for instance, when Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the caliph, the so-called caliph of the Islamic State, gave his sermon in Mosul, he modeled the sermon after the sermon of the first caliph and quoted him verbatim. So, to say that IS is not Islamic is inaccurate. Okay, you might disagree with their interpretation of Islam, and some people do. Shi'is do, for instance. So do Sufis. But IS is rooted deeply in a very literal and very uncompromising interpretation of the Islamic tradition and an application of that tradition. And they claim to be the true Muslims and to be following the examples of the first Muslims when Muslims came out of Arabia and conquered much of the all of the Sasanian Persian Empire, and also a big part of the Byzantine Empire. So I see IS as definitely an Islamic movement. They're an extreme Islamic movement, but to say that they're not Muslims or they're outside the sort of interpretive parameters of Islam is factually incorrect. Ending up in this debate, is it Islamic, is it non-Islamic, is kind of a total waste of time. There's no question that these people are drawing inspiration from Islamic texts. There's no doubt, and they know these texts better than most Muslims. Now, one might disagree with their interpretation, and that's for Muslims to do. What I would be interested in knowing is that if these Muslims say that these are not Muslims, that IS is not Islamic, why don't they hereticize them? Why don't they say that these people are infidels? I would be curious to know how many Muslims are willing to declare the members of IS non-Muslim, to call them apostates for their belief. I bet you there are very, very few people who are willing to do that.
Out of fear? Or?
It could be fear, it could be also because, they are Muslims. And Muslims are not supposed to hereticize other Muslims.